Hey Zwifters, I'm Simon Schofield and this is the Zwiftcast. Coming up on this episode, it's a Zwift romance.
Through Zwift, our dreams come true. So this is why we are so happy.
The Zwiftcast's new coaching spot has an alternative to the dreaded 20-minute FTP test. And meet Eric Chon, the man who nails flyers and fixes it for Zwifters with issues. Well, for the second time in as many months, we're all three together, boys. Here we are again in another hotel room with Nathan perched on the bed, Shane sat cross-legged on the floor. Hey, Shane, nice to see you.
G'day, mate. How are we?
Yeah, well, I'm tired. I think you might be feeling the effects too. We'll get to the reason why in a moment. Nathan, how are you?
I don't know. I'm kind of in a time warp a little bit. It's a little Twilight Zone, but that's okay. It's been a busy couple of days, but very exciting couple of days.
All three of us were involved to a pretty high degree with the latest CVR race series, which took place in London last evening. That was in Shoreditch, and for people who don't know that, that's kind of hipster central in East London. It's, I was going to say it's the UK equivalent of the Silicon Valley, but it's nothing like that. But there's lots and lots and lots of digital businesses and startups and stuff based around this area. We were in a converted railway arch with very thick walls and quite low ceilings and stuff. And I mean, it really was a pain cave last night. You were competing as an athlete, so let's hear your view of how it was last night for you and a bit of an assessment of the event.
Yeah, look, it was, I guess it kind of felt like home because about 230 years ago, the British shipped off many criminals who were held in very similar dungeons as we were in last night. So I felt a little bit at home, I guess, coming over and being put in a pain cave like that, but no shackles. Only the bike and the clip-ins that held us in place. But look, tough event, really, really tough. I've been training pretty hard. Caught the dreaded man flu in the last week. I'm like, oh, do I train through it? So I've been training and then resting and training and still shaking it. But look, I hit some PBs there, but that wasn't anywhere near enough to be competitive. It was on from the gun, and if you've seen the replay, that both races, the ladies and the men's, straight out of the blocks. We were doing probably 600 watts plus for a minute or so before it settled down. And then we chased and chased and chased. And I, to be honest, didn't have the legs. 20 minutes in, kaboom, that was it for me.
Do you think the environment that we were racing in last night had anything to do with that? Because it was a tough environment.
Super hot in there last night. And yeah, there was no audio. We didn't have any audio, so we couldn't hear the you guys on the mics and like sort of lighting up the environment and who's attacking and who's where. It was almost like being at home with no audio on. So that definitely impacted my race. In Vegas, we heard everyone screaming. And when someone's screaming, you go harder. There was a real big atmosphere. So that was a little bit lacking.
Nathan, I mean, we saw Tim Cartwright win. No surprise, really. I mean, he's such a strong rider, and he kind of time trialled his way. He blasted the opposition out of sight, really. You were commentating. I was actually working behind the scenes on this one with the rather grand sounding title of executive producer. So it was my job to bring the whole show together from kind of in television terms, which is drawing on my old background. That's a train just going through Hackney Central, listeners, by the way. It's gone now. Nathan, you were in your usual role as commentator along with Chris Haskell. How did it feel for you?
The connection with London and the UK is really strong with Zwift. It's one of the largest populations, I think, as far as I can see, from just the numbers that I see and the flags I see on Zwift. So there was a lot of people who made it to the event that I've been seeing on Zwift since beta, you know, and just people who have been in the streams and everything. So that was a great connection. Commentating with Chris was great. We had more real world, like what the suffering is, what is actually happening with each one of the athletes, and being able to talk about that a little bit more than just what I'm seeing in the game of Zwift was really cool. And I think that's kind of what CVR is after, what Cycling Gen is after a little bit with this, is to connect the sport to esport. We definitely had a lot more scenes, and as a commentator, to have more scenes to talk about what the athletes are feeling and what they're expressing during their race, what they're thinking during the race, and seeing those images to talk about it definitely was a new way of being creative as a commentator. And I really enjoyed that, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason you were getting some of those shots was because I'd kind of reverted to my old persona as a live TV guy, and I was up in the it must be said rather cobbled together production gallery that we had. We were tight for space in that venue, and we had a number of pretty severe technical challenges, if I'm honest with people. But we were able to get those pain face shots, those sweating shots, and those shots, you know, those great live shots that really just immediately transmit the brutality and the effort of that's involved in these races. And I think there were some positives from that. But we're at a kind of weird confluence here between digital streaming, digital game streaming, and conventional TV, and there were elements of both disciplines in that, and I don't know if they worked really. I mean, the thing is, guys, actually, we're all, Frank Garcia, who puts these events on, included, we're all experimenting here. I mean, this really is inventing something new. I mean, let's ask that. We'll round off this discussion with a kind of quick assessment of: do we think that this event moved it forward? Were there many learnings? You know, again, do we think this has a future as a spectator and participatory sport? What do you think, Shane?
From an athlete perspective, moving it forward, we need to see more of either the gamification or the realism brought into the platform. That's probably more aimed at Zwift. I think the riders are knowing how to play the game. If you see the power profiles, we're on smart trainers, you'd never know if you look at the power profile. People are flat out down the hill, they're flat out up the hill, and the heart rates are pegged. There's no, in a normal race, you got ups and downs, you got rests, you got troughs, you got peaks, you got sprints, you got attacks. This is just one speed, and that's flat out. From an athlete and a competitor point of view, that's where the development needs to start taking place to be more realistic, because during my race last night, I was looking forward to getting out on the road and racing A-grade races, because to be honest, they're easier out on the road. This stuff is hard.
I mean, they're all good points, and we'll get on later on in the show, actually, to a bit of pace of development at Zwift, which I think has got a little bit slower again. But anyway, we'll save that for a few minutes down the track. But Nathan, again, just before we were talking, just before we started recording, and you came up with a really good thought, which is actually you kind of need to take these events to where the people are rather than try to bring the people to the events. And I mean, I think all three of us have thought that doing this at something like Eurobike, for instance, is an absolute no-brainer.
I think that if we take it to the crowds in both the cycling and the esport world, we will see a huge pickup in interest in meeting people who have never seen this before. And so the only people that we're really going to reach out to for this right now are the ones, if we go to a venue and then try and bring the crowds in, are the ones who already know about this. Yeah. But it's such a niche thing right now that you're going to have to go somewhere like London where the niche is, right? And so that's why I think we got a big crowd. If we go to say some sort of an esports convention or a gaming convention or TwitchCon, PAX or whatever, or if we go to Interbike or Eurobike, the crowds will already be there and they'll be introduced to the new concept. And I think that's really how we expand this out to create a new market.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And one of the things that I was involved in is that this is going to be transmitted on a linear TV platform. It's going to be on the Sky platform on a channel called the Bike Channel, and it will be really interesting to see what kind of audience that it reaches there, actually, because that yeah, again is a different platform. We've not seen this on conventional TV. Yeah, really interesting. I think everybody involved in these events is going to admit that each one is a really, really, really big learning process. Whether they ultimately can be successful, I'm afraid, keep sitting on the fence. For me, the jury's still out. We need to watch and see how it develops. There's certainly money being put into it by the organisation behind these races. To an extent, if it's going to be super successful, it might just depend how deep their pockets are and how long they can keep funding these effectively experimental events. Interesting one. We'll be watching. Well, Zwift has had its first romance. Lisa and Michael, who are both from Germany, met on the platform, and 6 months later, after a whirlwind courtship, they got married. Here's their lovely, happy story. I'm going to ask you both to tell your story, but first of all, I just want to get a sense of what kind of reaction you've had. It seems to me that the reaction you've had has been absolutely, overwhelmingly fantastic.
Yes, it was very surprising for us because we are Zwifting together and we have this Facebook community, and we thought of, we want to share it with you. And then there was over 1,000 likes, and we were just like, wow, that's really amazing. We didn't expect it.
Unbelievable for us.
People love happy stories like this, and I mean, it's it's a first. Goodness me, it's a first. Let's begin the story. Can you tell me from the beginning how this happened?
Okay, so in Zwift you can have the followers, right? And so one of our common friends had us as followers. So I was just looking when I started with Zwift in this followers group of my friend. And one of this was Michael. And he was like 51 years old. And the picture was very nice. And his brown eyes was very nice. And I said, okay, I follow him as well in the Zwift followers. And then I have seen when he was riding, I gave him some ride-ons, and so the same did he.
I did the same, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so then we started, the Zwift romance.
And Michael, how did you start communicating? Was it through the message system on Zwift?
Yes, the first sentence through the message system, and a few days or a few hours later via WhatsApp and Facebook.
Amazing. So what was it on? I mean, obviously, Lisa, you seem to be highly attracted by Michael's fantastic handsomeness, but what else was it that made you think that you might be able to have some kind of romance?
I think because he had the same hobby like me, like riding, cycling, and he's a sporty guy, and it was like his pictures on Facebook were very interesting, and I thought, I was very interested in knowing him a little bit more.
The relationship obviously progressed after WhatsApp and Facebook. When did you first meet?
In real life, it was the end of January, yes? 26th. The 26th January.
And obviously that meeting in real life went pretty well.
Yes. I lived in Hamburg this time, and Michael in Frankfurt. So I said, okay, I will visit you. I'm very curious. I was on the train 3.5 hours, and I don't know if it was long or short. It was just like, the feelings were up and down, up and down. And then when I got off the train and I saw him on the train station,
oh my God.
It was just like, this is my man.
Wow, what a fantastic story. And Michael, did you feel the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw her and I knew that this is my wife. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
It really does. It's got all the elements of romance, hasn't it? In a meeting in a railway station, and it's kind of love at first sight. I mean, it's just an amazing story. So from January to June, it's only 6 months, and you're already now married.
Yes. Yes. So when you say, okay, when did we meet? We meet on the 26th of January, and then we spent the weekend together. And after this weekend, we said, okay, we fit very well. So it was like a not a joke, but after these 2 days, we could marry together. Okay.
If only everything in life was so simple and uncomplicated. So, Michael, do you cycle now with Lisa as well on Zwift and in real life?
Yes, both. We cycle really every week if the weather's fine, and if the weather's not so fine, we are Zwifting together.
So you do Zwift side by side. You've got 2 Zwift stations set up there.
Side by side in our apartment. Yeah. We have 2 Zwift stations with 2 computers and 2 touch screens. And we're Zwifting side by side.
I can't think there will be anybody in the Zwift community who doesn't wish you so well. Meeting on Zwift and now Zwifting together. I mean, it's like a Zwift dream, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Through Zwift, our dreams come true. So this is why we are so happy that we have Zwift, and we say many, many thanks to Zwift because otherwise we perhaps never met.
Well, my best wishes, the best wishes of the entire Zwift community. What a fantastic story, and you sound so happy together. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
So thank you, Simon, for the chance to give you our impressions and our love story. Thank you very much, Simon.
Yes, and I'm also very thankful to the Zwift community, and Zwift is the reason why I met my dream girl. And yes, I'm so happy about it. Thank you.
Right on! So, Nathan, Zwift as Tindr for cyclists. Discuss.
Oh my goodness. So I don't think you can swipe right or left. Can you? I guess turn right or left?
Intersections.
Like only at the intersection. So which way are you going to go and who are you going to follow? That's interesting. The pursuit. It's definitely the pursuit out on Zwift. So, I mean, I guess how many different ways can we put it in cycling terms? You know, what I think of right away is marriages I've seen that were actually performed in World of Warcraft. This happened, where a marriage was not only came out of the interaction of meeting in game, but actually the marriage itself was performed with the avatars in the game, and the entire guilds showed up and they went to a place in the world and they had a ceremony and the whole thing in the world.
When we see somebody getting married on the epic com, because all the guests will have to ride up that hill to get there.
To the people who play the game, it was like a moment. You know what I mean? Whoa, really? And then from the outside looking in, people are like, what are you doing? What is going on here? You know what I mean? There's all this sentiment on one side, and then there's this total like, you guys are really weird. On the other side.
The thing is, I mean, it's a great story. They're obviously so happy together, these two. And we have seen, I mean, I have to say, I've never been on them. I've been happily married for a long time. And really, I'm too old to have been into that kind of whole online dating thing. But there have been various attempts, I think, at like dating sites for cyclists. I'm looking at you as though you would know, Shane. I mean, like, why would you know? But I mean, you and Von are cyclists. Did you meet through cycling?
No, but not far off, I guess, from this story. We went to Ballarat University together in Australia, and we both did computing, and we chatted a lot online using IRC. Now, if anyone remembers IRC, Internet Relay Chat, this was well before, probably as the web was invented, I guess, just text chat. And that's pretty much where I got to meet my wife. So there's a bit of similarity there. We weren't on virtual bikes, but yeah, it was through technology.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably safe to say that one of the development directions of Zwift is not going to be taken is developing its dating system or dating function. I think that's probably one thing we're unlikely to see on Zwift. However, I mean, you know, this actually did arise as a result of the refined system for following. I mean, Lisa and Michael were able to follow each other much more easily after the recent update. So at least that's working, Shane.
So obviously she had notifications turned on when he was riding and vice versa, so they knew and they could join each rider. And now with the new, when you join a rider, you're sort of up to speed. So there's no dropping there. So I guess the courtship was probably helped via John and the team, putting that feature in Zwift. I like it, yeah.
I don't want to be a moaning Mini. I try not to be a moaning Mini. And having met John and the team at Long Beach, I know how long development takes, and I know where the logjams are in development, and I know why we don't see things quite as quickly as we would want to see things. But man, it's quiet on Zwift at the moment, Shane.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's funny, walking around London, we were looking around and there's quite a few extra roads here in London we're not seeing on Zwift yet. Hint, hint. Like there's a couple of back streets we want to sort of open up, guys.
Yeah, London course extension. I mean, we are going to get it, aren't we, Nathan? We think we're going to get it.
So I've seen it. So that's all I can say.
It exists.
It exists.
What can we say, listeners? We don't know anymore, really. I mean, I think probably all three of us have seen it. John has authorised me to say that one of the reasons for the delay is there is going to be something slightly different about the London extension that we've not seen in Zwift before, and that's probably even more tantalising and even more annoying for listeners. But I think there are really valid reasons for the delay to this, and actually elsewhere in Zwift at Long Beach, there's kind of been an acceleration of energy and activity. I know there's a few pretty big senior appointments being made, and we are starting to see kind of more stuff happen. I think more game stuff is the inevitable consequence of that, Shane. Probably for Northern Hemisphere winter, do you?
Yeah, look, from the conversations I had with the team when they were in Australia and New Zealand, there's more pieces of the puzzle being put together from a corporate perspective, and it looks like there's a bit more planning coming and a bit more growing up as a company, I guess. And I think the terminology was, as a startup, you go from an adolescent to, you're growing up, and just like the lifespan of the company is growing, and they're really expanding. So I'm hoping in the next 6 months we'll see a lot of things happening. Yeah, so we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, patience. We require patience. I'm afraid, listeners, us three, everybody else, we've just got to be patient.
Yeah. Anyways, there's a lot of really cool things I think are going to be coming down the road, and London, adding to London will be cool. But I like that there's something more to it than just a new road. That's a cool. That's the exciting part that I hear.
Yeah. Okay, well, listen, I was at Long Beach relatively recently, as loyal listeners will know, and while there, I spoke to a guy called Eric Chon. You may not know his name, but you will do if you hang around on the groups quite a lot. Eric is kind of the front line for Zwift. He deals with loads and loads and loads of customer-facing inquiries, from complaints to just generally helping to people to get into the game in the way they want to do it with the equipment that they've got. So let's hear a bit more from Eric, who's a great guy.
I guess whenever anyone has any bad news or a problem, they come to me. And, me and my team, we try to help everyone out with their technical problems or account problems. Oftentimes, we'll be the first point of contact regarding new features, or especially feature requests. I know that, especially when it comes to development, it may be a feature that you really want, but it could be very difficult to implement. Or, you think it's simple to implement, but then your first iteration with it doesn't go well. So we're like, okay, well, we'll put that on the back burner for now, even though it's a often requested feature. And there are a bunch of those, and we have to be the ones that are constantly be like, all right, so we're not ignoring you. We want to get this done. But at the same time, take that and be like, hey guys, you should work on this, or we need to bump this up because this is a really, really, really hot thing.
As the community has grown, we have seen the development of clubs, we've seen the development of teams, we've seen the development of a highly active and vocal racing community. We've now got a number of tribes. I mean, are you conscious of that? And do you feel any one of those has a more strident voice?
I think it is hard striking a balance. I wouldn't say necessarily one is more vocal than the other. I mean, I think the least vocal might be just which happens to be the majority of our users, I believe. Just use Zwift to exercise or ride around. I hesitate to use the term silent majority. They're either pretty happy with what it is currently and are happy with every new feature. It's kind of just it's not just taking the number of users per feature. It's just kind of gauging or what would be organic to implement next. All I can do is communicate to everyone, where people want to go. I don't really have much insight as to how to decide to plan the next steps.
What's the toughest thing you've ever dealt with?
One of the things that seems to always set people off, and I don't blame them, is the flyer alert. The majority of the time, it's a miscalibration, with Z-Power, which is itself a sticky issue. Despite the wording that we have, it's not us calling you out as a cheater, and sometimes the community can, either they take it that way or they push that kind of that narrative. No, and kind of helping people dial back from the idea that we're saying, oh, you're going too fast because you're trying to, versus, hey, something might be wrong, or maybe there's a problem with the software. What we really want to do is just kind of nail it down. What is it? No one likes being called a cheater, and that's definitely something that we want to emphasize, that we don't think of anyone as that.
For the credibility of the platform and the enjoyability of everybody who's on it, that task is a pretty crucial one, is it not?
The idea of having Z-Power, I think, is to make it very egalitarian. You know, we want everyone to be able to enjoy their rides on Zwift. But there's definitely concern regarding, you know, if we're going to be doing races or anything like that. I don't really have a deep insight as to how John and the development team are working on it, but I know that that's a very big concern and that they're doing a lot of things to, in the future, help, you know, make sure that everyone plays on an even playing field.
It's quite a demanding community, is it not?
It is, but I think that's good. You know, when you have a demanding community, you know, sure, it can make your job harder, but what it does is it makes your product better. I don't necessarily see it as difficult, more, you know, in regards to like, oh, these people are hard to deal with. I see it more as like, okay, this means that we have to hold ourselves constantly to a higher standard. You know, no lie, that can definitely wear on you, but in the end, as long as you realize that this makes everything, you know, better for them, better for you, and, you know, your job satisfaction goes up as soon as when you meet those demands.
It's a product that inspires amazing engagement. Have you ever worked anywhere else where the user base has been quite so vocal and passionate?
I think the level of commitment people put into Zwift is unlike anything I've seen before. It's fantastic. You know, it was shocking to me to see how much people are willing to like kind of invest in themselves, not just in equipment, but in themselves to better themselves into becoming a better whatever they want to be as a better rider. And it's really awesome to be part of that with Zwift. This is definitely probably the most engaged group of people I've ever had the pleasure of working with.
What role do you think Zwift should take in, if any, in moderating the behavior of the community?
I don't want to take a strong hand, but I want to make sure that Zwift is welcome to everyone. You know, the more people that feel not just safe, but to feel good about riding here, that encounter a positive community, the better. I don't believe in elitism. I don't believe in being negative. I feel that, you know, that drives people away, and you know, and I don't think that's too hard of a goal. Whenever I ride around outside, everyone I meet is always the most helpful person, you know, whether I have a flat or someone else does. And I feel like it's, you know, helpfulness is inherent to most cyclists, and I just want to make sure to encourage that.
So would you say in general it's a fairly easy community to moderate? Yeah,
I would say so. People are generally wonderful in Zwift, and I'm not just saying that. It's a pleasure to communicate, talk to these people, and kind of help them. You know, whenever we get a chance to, you know, either solve an issue or announce a new feature and make Zwifters happy, then that's like the highlight of our day.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure to meet you after seeing you so much online. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thanks. Thank you. I really appreciate you talking to me. It was really great to meet you as well. Please don't be too angry at me when you send in a support request.
Thanks, Eric.
Ride on!
Okay, fellas. Well, let's do what we usually do and just talk a bit about what each of us has been doing since the last time we updated the listeners. Shane, lots of people will have seen your fantastic social media coverage of the Zwift New Zealand and Oz tour. How was that?
Really, really good. Every year we see growth, and this is the third time, so it'll be 2 years, I guess, that Zwift have come out to Australia. This time they added New Zealand. It was really good. They're they're my people in the crowd. I was talking smart. I can talk smart trainers all night, or all day, and 24/7. So, had a great time over in New Zealand. My first time to New Zealand in Auckland. So great crowd over there. Pizza was consumed. KOM challenges were done, and just a brilliant country town feel in Auckland. And then over on the plane to Sydney, complete opposite. Chaos, madness, heaps of people. And good night had by all at RAFA Sydney, then down to Melbourne. So this was over 5 days, 3 events, and the team behind the scenes were working pretty hard. So Melbourne was a good wrap-up event. Again, com set, interviews had Matthew Keenan there, the new voice of cycling. on the mic and had a good time. But unfortunately, that's where I think I caught my man flu as well. Yeah, no, but look, great time over there. And look, it just goes to show the growth of Zwift in Australia. This continues to happen. And the HDR ride on the Wednesday night, we had Tim Searle there in Sydney, and everyone we had 380 people on the line for a community ride the other night. And I think the Wednesday that everyone was at RAFA in Sydney, and Tim himself was at RAFA in Sydney, they still had over 300 on his ride. So he was sitting there with a grin all night, like, yeah, his baby ride was just doing so well. So yeah, going on.
Well, I mean, I continue to try to do that ride if I possibly can, just because it is just... I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. I think it's the best ride on Zwift, not only in volume terms, but just the atmosphere around it and the competitive nature of the last lap. But, the kind of rolling start is usually observed by everybody on the ride. It just seems to me to be, the classic great Zwift community ride.
It has something for everyone. Because if you're struggling to hold just the bunch pace, that can be your challenge for the night. Hold on for those 2 laps easy and just roll the last lap. If you're a racer like me, I roll with the bunch and sort of a rolling start, and then it's on the last lap. It is race time. It's only short, but you've got a good warm-up in. The racing is fierce, but also quite relaxed if you can sit back in the bunch, if you can. Usually we're off the front, though, going hard.
Did you notice, finally on this, did you notice anything significantly different this year than last year with the Zwift Tours, or even the year before? Because, I mean, you're a veteran of these now. Is it just simply that numbers are increasing, or is there anything kind of qualitatively different going on, do you think?
There wasn't any new releases, though. I think in Australia the last few years they've had something new to release as well. This time they just came out and said, look, we're just going to have a party, everyone come along, and they're just sort of now inviting the existing community in. So I guess it's just, that's the difference there.
Yeah, I think it's become like a kind of almost annual community meetup now, hasn't it? Rather than an event that introduces, as you say, a new thing to Australia's cycling community. Nathan, I know you are ferociously busy. All the coverage you're doing on ZCL and race commentary and London and the whole thing, and you've now taken on something else, or in fact you've been asked to take on something else. So let's just give a bit of background to this. There is a crazy race in Iceland, which a lot of the Zwift execs did last year. I know Eric Min did it, Charlie Eisendorf did it, Mike McCarthy did it. I mean, these guys are pretty strong riders, and they're doing it again. And they've asked you to join the team. So first of all, just tell us what you know about this race. It's full on, isn't it?
It's the WOW Cyclothon race. We're doing the perimeter of Iceland, and you have a team of 9, and I will be on the Zwift/CCP team. It looks like Zwift is in it to win it, is what it looks like. They've been. I believe they've had a testing ground in-house for the Zwift team, and I saw, a lot of posts about some rides that the whole Zwift employees were doing, like a 300-mile, 3 days, and they did 100 miles a day in Southern California. And I think that was kind of a testing ground for them to get ready to see, who is going to make the team, kind of a thing. I've been logging into Zwift every day for almost 2.5 years, I believe. Almost, like 90%, maybe more of my rides. And I've been getting ride-ons from a certain guy every time I log in, Eric Min. and he's been watching me for a while, I think. Because I log in about and I ride late at night, and he wakes up in the morning over in the UK, I think, and he gets notifications of the people I think that he follows, and suddenly a little ride-on comes over my head and it says E-Min, and I'm live. I'm like, hey, Eric Min.
Hey, Nathan, are you sure that's a feature, not a bug? Because there was at one point, actually, and I don't know.
Was there actually a
I think there was an Eric Min bug, actually. No, I seriously do, because I used to get a ride on every single time I got on the trainer from Eric, and it was like, Eric, I know you're not stalking me. I know you don't have time in your busy life.
Yeah, it must be an Eric bot.
I thought it might be an Eric bot, so maybe you've got the Eric bot.
I got the Eric bot. That's what it was. Well, the Eric bot, I guess he also has a phone, maybe too. The Eric bot, so he gave me a call, and anyway, so it was. I'm really honored, actually. This isn't me, whatever. Like, I'm really, really honored to be a part of the team, and I'm gonna.
It's a relay, isn't it?
No, I think it's whatever you got as in your team. You can have anybody out at any time that you want to, and it sounds like at the end of the race, the whole team ends up out on course, pushing to be the first one to the line, kind of a thing. So across the line from the team is what it sounds like is how it works. and whoever you can get there first with your 9-man team, good to go, kind of a thing.
But that keeps the average speeds insanely high. I mean, the speeds I was seeing were like Tour de France bunch speeds. They were like 25, 26 miles an hour average, towards 40k.
I've heard stories. I'm bouncing around Zwift HQ when I was there about this race. It sounds brutal. I've heard of 10-minute efforts and then some relays from 10-minute efforts, flat out TT stuff. So look out. It's going to be great. I can't wait to hear the reports back from Nathan and the crew about how it all goes.
So my training has been for XC racing, and I'm in good shape for XC racing. I've won the last 2 races at a professional level against pretty stacked fields in the Wars races. And my last race on Sunday before coming here, so the last few days have been insane. And I raced my bike, won by a minute and a half. I dropped my chain on the last lap, but had such a gap that I still came in way ahead. So I have good fitness right now, but I've been training for XC racing, an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm peaking right now for that a little bit.
Just imagine the start of an XC race though, but for 3 days.
Exactly, right? So I think I'm going to go back home and find my bike for 3 to 5 hour rides for the next week or so to try and really just extend out my endurance, because obviously the anaerobic ability is there right now to go with that, but I just need to really get the glycogen stores ramped up a little bit and
let me just say a few things to you, Nathan.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a few things to say to you. This team is comprised of Zwift execs. Okay. Now these guys in their former lives didn't mess around. Eric built a very successful business and sold it for squillions of dollars. Mike McCarthy is a former world champion. Charlie Eisendorf has just gone back to racing. I don't know who else quite is in the team, but let's call them type A, high-achieving, high-expectation kind of guys. And like you say, I think they want to win this. Now, they've kept this really kind of well under the radar to the Zwift community itself, and I think there's a feeling amongst them, I mean, there's a bit of speculation on my part here, but I think there's a feeling amongst them that they don't want to set expectations, or they don't want to brag about it, or they don't want to be seen to be like, execs having fun, yada, yada, yada. My view on that is completely opposite. I think it actually shows that they're real, proper cyclists, and I think they should maybe make a bit more of their participation in this, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. I know the guys, were speaking about it, and a few other rides they've been doing when they were in Australia. I took them out for a few loops around Melbourne to show them the real Australia, and we did see kangaroos. So I told them we'd see kangaroos, and we did, which was good. And they're in good form. They really are. So it's good to see people, they believe in the product. They've been using Zwift to train up as well. And let's see how they go.
So no pressure, Nathan.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know. I've been so crazy busy. I haven't even had time to think about the pressure. I'm just kind of gonna just get on my bike, and it's the usual. Just get on the bike and go and start pedaling every time I can, kind of a thing. So,
well, just to update listeners, I'm not talking about getting on my bike just now. I'm talking about getting off my bike. There was a, shall we say, involuntary and rather forcible dismount involved in my bicycling life. I have to say that it was kind of a misunderstanding at a junction between me and a taxi driver. Sometimes you infer from a look in their eyes and a way they seem to be heading that they're going to be going in a certain direction, and then they surprise you. It wasn't really his fault. It could have been my fault. I could have been going slower through the junction. I was carrying a lot of speed into a like kind of mini roundabout thing, and I could have exercised a little more caution. But the thing is, I go through that like 100, 200 times a year, and I'm really used to what drivers do on it and how to get through it quickly and efficiently. And on this occasion, it all went wrong, badly wrong, and I hit the rear of the car and went over the top of the bars, over the top of the car, landed and rolled like a pro, like completely not by judgment. I just happened to land extremely well. And walked away, literally completely unscathed. The same could not be said for my bike. Carbon frame, and you hear people talk about a frame being in 3 pieces, and you sometimes don't really believe it. My bike was in 3 pieces. It shattered at the head tube, transmitted the force all the way down to the bottom bracket. It was in a very, 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 very sorry condition, and I wasn't very happy about it. Anyway, that's kind of what I've been up to. I'm back on a bike, you know, and completely unscathed. Put it down to experience kind of thing. But I'd already marked this down to talk about, actually, for us before this happened to me, and that is just this terrible, terrible, terrible spate of incidents where cyclists are getting run off the road or they're getting killed. I mean, we've seen, you know, Chris Froome, for God's sake, run off the road by an impatient driver. In the UK here, a very promising teenage time trialist was killed out training. We've seen Michele Scarponi killed out training. Or is this just a rash or of horrible things? Or, you know, are things getting worse on a global basis for cyclists? Shane, what do you think? I mean, it's kind of an impossible question, but I mean, what's your view on it?
It's so hard to tell without knowing the true statistics, but I hope it's only, I mean, it's tragic, the deaths that we've referred to there, but I'm hoping it's not anything out of the norm. I hope there's not an increase in it, and that we're just seeing more of the social media posts and the more discussion around that and the sharing, because if someone comments on something, you'll see it on your feed if it relates to, so...
And more cameras on bikes. I mean, you know, not a day goes by now when I don't... Actually, I skip over them now because I don't want to see them, really. But not a day goes by when there's not a punishment pass or a horrible close pass posted on social media of someone with a camera on a bike. Yeah,
so I think it's probably more regular we see that posted because of the content being available. But... yeah, that's what I've got to say about that. It is quite sobering, but for me, it doesn't stop me going out on the road. It makes me quite conscious of being visible, and it's really good to see that high-vis stuff is not coming back into fashion, but it's not dorky anymore. At the Rafa store in Sydney, there was a backpack that was entirely a reflector. Now, back in the old days, there used to be like a council worker or a road worker to have reflecting vests on and things, but that's now. So I'm glad to see that. And there's socks out there that glow. There's more things coming there, and I guess the things like the meter matters or the 3 foot rule and things like that around the world sort of becoming more part of the discussion. So I hope things are moving in a positive direction. But to see these cases, it's just really disheartening.
Well, the behaviour I see out on the roads from drivers, I regret to say, continues to be dreadful. Not every driver, but enough drivers. You get back from a ride and you think, there's at least one incident on that, maybe 2 or 3, particularly when you ride in a group, and I don't know, I find it really, really, really tough to deal with. And the reason we're talking about this on a podcast about indoor training is, do you think these things, it's a horrible way to say it, but, are they kind of good for Zwift? Do you think these things have an effect on the psyche of cyclists overall, Nathan, and are actually going to they'll never force me indoors, ever. But do you think they could force some people indoors, the increased visibility of this kind of stuff?
Oh, definitely. Mainly because you see the comments and the posts about people saying, this is why. Yeah. And especially with significant others like wives and girlfriends, or the other way around like that. I mean, either way, from husbands concerned about wives. I mean, it's really seeing all the stories and the increased awareness, I think, too, that we were talking about on social media, has people worried about the people they care about and pushing, am I going to see you come home after you go out for a bike ride? And so I've always said it's a cultural problem, though. It's the way we think and the way we believe about roads. It has more to do with how we've been trained to think about them and what they're there for. Yeah,
well, you only have to go to Spain to see that, or France, or to an extent Italy, although, obviously the horrible thing that happened to Scarponi happened in Italy. But the cultural difference, that certainly with Spanish drivers, certainly in areas of high traffic for bicycles, drivers are capable of behaving better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's by us in the U.S., the expectation on the roads is they were made for motor vehicles. I mean, that's the way they were designed. That's the way the Department of Transportation has treated the whole thing. It's definitely an infrastructure. And the way that there's There's a couple of really great organizations locally to us that are advocacy for infrastructure for bicycling. And the way that they've put it a lot of times is they're incomplete roads, that we are put in a bad situation. It's not the driver, it's not the cyclist, it's the situation we're put into that we have to deal with. And then the human behavior, that's the natural reaction. And we have to go against our selfish natural reaction to say this was here for my purpose. Immediate in an immediate place, and we're just in a bad space at a bad timing that we've been forced into.
Yeah, we're in a fight for space. Shane,
being here in London, I've noticed, I haven't ridden out in the roads because we're here for the indoor cycling, but I have noticed there's a lot of cyclists around on very skinny roads. And the traffic seems to be a little more calm here. Now, I haven't been out there myself, but it seems to be there's a sense of we're all here on the road ourselves. There's not a lot of room for everyone. So it's been quite good to see. And there's actually quite a lot of bikes around here.
Well, there's an interesting thing going on in London. I mean, it's you know, and there are terrible incidents here. You know, I mean, there've been a number of very well publicised cases, and again, rarely a day goes by when there's not some video now. I mean, people even mock them up now, you know, to make them go viral and make money from them. You know, they have become such a thing, the battle between a cyclist and a motorist. But there is a bit of an interesting thing happening in London where we're not quite yet at critical mass, but we're approaching something where bikes on certain roads, particularly the ones that are prioritised for bike travel, are beginning to outnumber motorists. And actually what that's done is forced motorists to change their behaviour.
Right, yeah. No, I've noticed that. And getting around London, it looks like a lot faster on a bike than it is in a car.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a stat that the average speed in London has not increased. In fact, it has decreased since the age of the horse and cart. The horse and cart used to get you around an average of about, I think, from memory, it's broadly right, this, about 16 miles an hour. I think the average speed for a motorised journey in London is below that. And obviously for a bike, it's going to be way faster.
Yeah, I've been on the tube and on the buses, and the tube is a lot quicker. And on the buses, I see cyclists in their thousands go past. But it's been good to see a bit of a cohesion of road users, I guess, of any type. Even the bus drivers and the taxi drivers. It's been quite good to see. Again, limited experience, but it's been pleasing.
Yeah. Well, it's not perfect here in London, but some progress sure has been made. This is the Zwiftcast, the podcast for Zwifters. Well, welcome to what's going to become a regular part of the Zwiftcast, and that's a coaching spot with Kevin Poulton. Hi, Kevin.
How you going?
We ought to establish your credentials for the very few people who don't know. You're Matty Hayman's coach.
Yeah, Coach Matthew Hayman, along with some other professional riders. Been doing that for quite a while now. Obviously had some success recently as well, and looking forward to some more in the future.
Yeah, I think listeners can be pretty secure that you know your stuff.
You know, as satisfying as it is to watch a professional athlete win a big bike race, it's also just as satisfying to see amateur riders and other professionals just they're all making sacrifices and they want to perform at their best, and playing a part in their journey is a real buzz.
So we're going to start with probably the favourite subject for Zwifters, really, which is the FTP test. The classic FTP test can be very arduous for the new cyclist or the cyclist who's not really used to fitness testing. So a slightly weird question talking about the FTP test, but is there an alternative to it that you'd recommend?
Yeah, there definitely is. The 20-minute test is a very good test, but there are alternatives, and there's a couple that I like to use. One of them is the 2x8-minute test. And then it's also good to follow that up with a MAP test, which is a maximal aerobic power test. And we use that to validate the result that you get from the 8-minute test, just to make sure you have more confidence in your setting.
Right. Let's take the 8-minute, the 2x8-minute then. Just describe for us a typical protocol for the 2x8-minute and why you think that's a good alternative.
After a good warm-up, you're completing 2 8-minute efforts with 10 minutes recovery in between those efforts. And they are full gas efforts, so giving everything that you can. And the reason why they're effective in terms of setting threshold is that it also gives you some other information on the rider's fitness in terms of their ability to repeat an effort. So if a rider is not able to achieve the same average power in the second 8-minute effort, it kind of shows us that their aerobic engine needs some looking at first in the first part of their training program. And to get the value from the 8-minute test, we use the average power of the best average power of the 8 minutes, and we take 10% off that. There was some confusion with the 8-minute test where people were getting the average of the 2 8-minute tests and taking 10% off that, but you're looking at just the best 8 minutes that you can give and 10% off that value.
Yeah, well, that's nice and simple, isn't it? What to you are the advantages of the 2 by 8 minutes? I mean, I guess the obvious one is it's just not as long as 20 minutes, and you might be able to pace yourself a little bit better.
Yeah, mentally it's a bit easier to get a handle on, but it also, when we come back and retest, we're not always looking for an increase in the 8-minute power. We could also be looking at the ability to repeat the same effort in the second effort. So if the first time you do the test, your second effort is way off the first effort, then the next time you come back and test, you'll be looking to either increase your average power for 8 minutes or get the 2 efforts as close as possible.
So talk us through the MAP test, or maximal aerobic power. What's that and why does it matter?
We use the MAP test to validate your value, your test result from the 8-minute test. You don't use the MAP test to set your threshold. You use it just to validate your setting. And the way we do a MAP test, there's a few variations on this, but they pretty much come to the same result. So for a male cyclist, they would start at 175 watts and increase by 25 watts every minute until exhaustion. And for a female cyclist, they would start at 125 watts and increase by 25 watts every minute until exhaustion.
And by exhaustion, Kevin, you mean that's the slump over the handlebars moment when you can no longer turn the pedals?
Absolutely. You just can't pedal anymore. So you've given it everything, emptied the tanks, and you can't pedal anymore. And then from that test, you take your best 1-minute power, and from that 1-minute power, your threshold setting should fall within 72 to 79% of that maximal 1-minute power from the MAP test. So it's just a way to validate. It's very accurate.
Well, lots of numbers there, so let's summarise. Let's start with the 2 by 8 minute FTP test. You want to do a good warm-up and then complete 2 8-minute efforts at full gas with a 10-minute recovery period in between. You take the average power for the best 8-minute effort and reduce that by 10%. And that will give you an FTP number equivalent to the longer test. For the maximal aerobic power test, start with a fairly low wattage in the 100s. For men, you should start about 175, and for women, about 125. Then increase the load by 25 watts every minute and keep pedalling until exhaustion. Take the best 1-minute power reading, and your FTP should fall between 72% and 79% of that maximal aerobic power reading. These tests are themselves a good workout.
Yeah, they are. They're a good workout in themselves. So don't get hung up on the end value. Think of it as a good workout. And if you are performing it every 4 to 6 weeks, look at the trend in the results. If they're going up over time, obviously things are going well. If you have a bad result, put it behind you, forget about it, and go on to the next one in a few weeks' time.
Right on.
Shane, you can't deny the fact that Kevin Pilton knows what he's talking about. So the 20-minute test versus the 2 by 8-minute test, I mean, they're widely seen as being equally valid. Do you agree?
For me, if the number gets you near enough, that's close enough. Unless you are totally elite and at the Tour de France level, near enough's good enough. So any of those methods, they're good enough by me.
You were making a face about the 2x8 minute, Nathan. Maybe you don't like that so much.
Well, no, I'm a little with Shane. Is just I think there's a little beating of the chest when it comes to FTP, and I think that there might be a little bit of like, well, your FTP is not that high, or my FTP is this high, and I'm just kind of like, it's a number to train around with a large breadth of, you know what I mean? So having this exact number, what do you need that for? To tell somebody you're really, really strong? Like, or not really strong?
I get that quite a lot on my YouTube channel. If I'm presenting a workout or saying I did this, or did a short minute power, people are like, oh, what is your FTP? Well, it's really not relevant to anybody. Yeah, exactly. Even to me, for a short effort, my 5 minute could be completely different than somebody with the same FTP over that effort. So it's a physiological thing, and it's not, without knowing your weight and knowing your training, it's just this, it's a number for you to train around. So yeah, there's a lot of hang up on it. Like it's almost like a tattoo that people wear. It's definitely not though.
You're both right. And people get horribly, horribly hung up on this FTP number. I think the one point that I would like to leave listeners with though about the 2x8 minute, and maybe you two will agree with this, is that for a newbie, for people who are not used to testing, for people who are maybe new to proper structured training and have not done any kind of fitness testing before, it is just that bit easier to do, isn't it, Shane?
Yeah, look, it's mentally easy to get through. 20 minutes is a long way. Well, if you want to go outside and do an hour, that's a long way to go. But 2x8 is not too bad to get through. But I think it's about establishing a baseline and something to measure yourself against next time. That's it. That's all these become. And they're quite valuable for that.
And either way, you're going to end up with a result that can be repeatable on an 8 minute, right? And so either way, you're going to see a consistent number to work around. That's the whole point. And if you're able to push yourself harder and harder through those and get better and better numbers, you're using a training tool about what you're establishing, what you can actually perform at.
Okay, let's finish off. We talked a lot actually about what we've all been doing personally. I hope viewers, listeners find this interesting or semi-diverting. But Shane, you made me laugh. Because you messaged me and you said, I'm off to a spin class. And I mean, it was probably quite a good way, sort of, yeah, I know, of just maybe keeping the legs turning over before the race you've just done. But you came away vaguely converted to the joys of spinning, I say with a questioning tone in my voice.
I understand the business model of Peloton. I now do. So to set the picture here, flown in 30 hours door to door. Didn't know what day it was, what time zone it was. I shaved when I left and I shaved when I arrived. And to travel that far, that's just too far. Anyhow, so times that we needed to spin the legs as an athlete, as a cyclist, we've got to keep the consistencies where it's at. So looked around for bikes, couldn't find much on a Sunday, but there was a spin class. Now we're talking spin bikes, we're talking female fitness instructor, a whole room full of ladies there. So Scotty and I were the only two guys. We had disco lights, we had the darkened room, we had a Spotify playlist, and yeah, we had up and down in the saddle and twist and twist and twist and up and down and turn the knob, and we got slaughtered.
That's what Scotty said. Scotty said it was so hard.
I can't explain. Without visuals, I cannot explain. The instructor was doing 150 RPM, going, keep up, boys, keep up. Scotty and I going, what? We can't. We wanted to almost substitute her in for our CVR spots for the race. These people have specific fitness for these machines and these type of class. Unbelievable, new level of respect. And the other ladies in the class as well. It was funny being, I guess, almost semi-professional indoor cyclists as we are, getting flown around the world to compete, and here we are getting slaughtered in the back streets of London on a Sunday morning. But it's exactly what we needed. We sweated a lot.
Streets of London on a Sunday morning. I love it.
For £10, it was a great workout. But
so the thing is, did you enjoy the whole experience, the music, the lights, the darkness, the shouting by a pretty girl, all of that stuff? I mean, did you actually get that experience?
Hell no, it hurt. It was terrible. But what we were there for a purpose, which was to get the legs going, get the lungs going, get the heart beating and shake some. We walked out, Scotty and I just walked out in shock almost. Highly recommended, really, if you need something to do for that. But also doing it in a group environment. If we went to the spin studio ourselves and did 2x20, 5x5, just ourselves, there's no motivation to push. You're just getting it done, getting the job done. Having someone else tell you what to do, I get that now. So it was an interesting exposure. Now, I've done thousands of indoor sessions. This was my first spin class. Well, will it be my last? We'll see. We'll see.
Interesting. Well, I mean, Peloton has just completed a funding round. If anybody's interested, they should just go and Google it if you're interested in business. But this is that rare thing. Peloton is a unicorn. It's a tech company that is now worth, on paper, $1 billion, you know, and they've just raised, Nathan's going like, what? It's about their 6th funding round. They are expanding all over the place, and they are now on paper worth $1 billion. I mean, you know, if you go into the tech or the business press, there are people very, very, very excited about Peloton, and it's a big, big, big company. So, Nathan, I know you've got to go and get your plane, so this will be the very, very last thing we'll talk about. And I know you're more of a fan of the idea of the smart bike than Shane is. Maybe Shane's a bit converted now. But, I mean, you know, could Zwift really get a big slice of this Peloton business if somebody else, because it's not them making it, but if somebody else gets the smart bike right and Zwift get to work with it in the way that Peloton are clearly so successfully doing and spinning in, you know, it's sent to you, Shane.
The interview with the Uber exec, friction, okay? Friction and market. Those two words come to my mind immediately is reduce the friction and then expand the view of the market. Because right now it's really aimed at a certain niche. And I think that there's a much larger market that Peloton is after.
Well, they've proven it exists. I mean, people don't throw money at these companies for no reason.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so I think that there's definitely the ability to do the same thing with this and make it much more... or even the same kind of community feel. It seems like there's a community feel to the spin thing. I used to teach spin classes way back, and there's some pretty committed people at those gyms that show up. The same people, I go to weightlift now at the same gym I used to teach at, and the same people are attending 15 years later the same spin classes, right? So there's a community feel to the attendance of this like ritual, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think AHDR's got some ritual around it. I think that there's this thing that can be experienced around a community of a digital community that can be even a stronger pull than the Peloton has actually, because of the relationship that will be stronger from a massive multiplayer online that has a lot of different things always happening at once in game. But we need to be able to reduce the friction to understand that. And we talked about someone getting married in WoW, World of Warcraft, just a little while ago. And I think that is an example of how strong a digital community and a massive multiplayer can connect people. And I think Zwift could touch on the same thing. We just talked about people getting married because of this game. I think Peloton touches on the quick, like, meet, leave market, right? Mm-hmm. This has user experience pre, during, and post in a totally different way that I think Zwift could tap into.
Yeah. But I think it's the smart bike that's going to ultimately reduce the friction. I really do for the mass market.
Well, this has parallels with Apple versus Android when it comes to the phones. Yeah. The Apple people, you just unbox it, you're done. There's no flexibility there. So I see Peloton as the Apple iPhone. Yeah. Zwift is almost the Android. Has the flexibility, is punching pretty hard though to get that market share. Yeah. But the potential there for sure if they can nail it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see big developments at Eurobike, which is probably the next time we're all together because Nathan has got to go and get his aeroplane. We're all quite tired actually. If it was for different reasons, it was a tough day yesterday. Thanks very much indeed, guys, for making the time. It's quite early morning here in London, and Nathan is literally dashing for a plane. Nathan, really, really great to see you again. Good luck in Iceland. Thanks very much for making this happen.
Thanks, Simon. Appreciate it.
And no, it's been good joining you boys in another seedy hotel room.
Great to see you. Thanks very much. I think the next time we'll all meet is at Eurobike. But until then, I'll see and hear from you next time by our more usual means. Great to see you, boys. That's it for this one, folks. Hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed making it. Just time to say thanks, as ever, to Zwift for supporting the podcast. And a reminder to listeners that despite that support, Zwift have no influence on what we choose to say or how we choose to say it. Thanks very much for listening. See you next time.